In the quiet suburbs of New Jersey, Richard Kuklinski was the picture of the American dream. To his neighbors, he was a friendly if imposing figure. To his wife and children, he was a devoted family man, a loving father who provided a comfortable life, complete with backyard barbecues and family vacations. But this idyllic facade concealed a monstrous secret. Richard Kuklinski had two faces, and the other was one of pure, unadulterated evil. For over 2 decades, he operated in the shadows as one of the most feared contract killers for the mafia. He was a master of his gruesome trade, known for his chilling efficiency and a complete lack of emotion. His methods were as varied as they were brutal, earning him the nickname the Iceman. He would freeze his victims' bodies in an industrial freezer, sometimes for years, to mask the time of death and confound forensic investigators. This cold, calculated technique became his signature, but his arsenal was vast. From firearms and explosives to his preferred silent method, cyanide poisoning, Kuklinski was a versatile and remorseless predator, a ghost in the criminal underworld. His career of violence spanned decades, leaving a trail of bodies that law enforcement struggled to connect. While official counts vary, Kuklinski himself claimed to have murdered over 200 people, a staggering number that would make him one of the most prolific killers in American history. How did a man maintain this terrifying double life for so long? What twisted path led a young boy from a brutal home to become a monster for hire? This is the story of the man behind the myth. This is the story of the Iceman. The foundation of Richard Kuklinski's life wasn't love, but pure terror. His childhood home in the Jersey City projects was a private hell ruled by his father, Stanley, a violent alcoholic whose rage was a storm that never passed. The beatings were a daily ritual. This paternal brutality culminated in the death of Richard's older brother, Florian. The official story was a fall down the stairs, but Richard later confessed a darker truth. His father had beaten the boy to death. There was no sanctuary with his mother, Anna. A devout Catholic in public, she was another monster behind closed doors, wielding broom handles with a cold fury. Her screams weren't cries for help. They were the soundtrack to the abuse, a chorus of rage offering no protection. For young Richard, the concept of a loving parent was alien. He was trapped between two architects of pain, learning that survival meant becoming numb. Escaping onto the streets offered no relief, only a different war zone where the weak were prey. But Richard, already hardened, learned to adapt. He discovered the chilling equation that would define his existence. Inflicting fear was the ultimate form of power. The lessons of the street fused with the trauma of his home, forging a predator who saw dominance as the only means of survival. His first experiments with this power were on stray animals. This cruelty was a rehearsal, a way to practice killing and sever the link to empathy. Soon he graduated. His first human victim was a local bully. In that moment of ultimate dominance, Richard Kuklinski wasn't just a troubled boy anymore, he was a killer. Violence became his language, his identity, his reason for being. By his 20s, Kuklinski was feared. The mafia noticed. They gave him contracts. Jobs where failure wasn't an option. People disappeared. Bodies were never found. He became their ghost, their weapon. By day, Richard was a family man, smiling at his kids. By night, he transformed. Weapons in the trunk, cyanide in a bottle. No one suspected, not neighbors, not his family. Kuklinski approached murder not as a crime of passion, but as a craft to be perfected. He was a meticulous planner, a student of death who sought the most effective and least detectable methods to ply his trade. His arsenal was varied, but he had his favorites, tools he refined through chilling experimentation. Cyanide was his signature weapon. He was captivated by its properties. Quick, silent, and notoriously difficult for coroners to trace in the 1970s and 80s, often being mistaken for a heart attack. He didn't just use it, he mastered it. He would administer the poison in a nasal spray bottle, catching his victim off guard with a sudden mist to the face. Other times he'd simply drop it into a drink or onto food, a quiet and unassuming act of lethality. He chillingly admitted to testing his methods on stray dogs to perfect the dosage and delivery, ensuring his human targets would have no chance of survival. But his most infamous technique gave him his name. To obscure the time of death and throw investigators off his trail, Kuklinski would freeze his victims' bodies. He had access to a large industrial freezer where he would store a body for months or even years. When he finally disposed of the corpse, forensic science was rendered almost useless. A body found in summer might have frozen solid in the middle of winter, making it impossible for the medical examiner to establish a timeline. This cold, calculated method earned him his chilling nickname, the Iceman. Yet Kuklinski was no one-trick pony. His methods were as diverse as his clientele. He was proficient with firearms, knives, and garrots. He once used a crossbow to carry out a silent, long-distance hit. This versatility made him an invaluable asset in the criminal underworld and a phantom to law enforcement. He was a ghost who could kill in any manner required, leaving behind a trail of bafflingly different crime scenes. For years, his name was only a whisper among mobsters, but as the bodies piled up, a dedicated joint task force of New Jersey law enforcement and the Federal Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco and Firearms, or ATF, was formed. Their mission, codenamed Operation Iceman, was to unmask this mysterious killer. The key to the entire operation would be one man willing to step into the lion's den. That man was undercover agent Dominic Polifrone. For 18 grueling months, Polifrone posed as a well-connected criminal named Dom Provenzano, slowly and carefully earning Kuklinski's trust. It was a terrifyingly dangerous assignment. Polifrone had to meet with Kuklinski, listen to his monstrous stories and pretend to be one of him, all while wearing a wire. The psychological toll was immense, as any slip-up would mean certain death. Ultimately, it was Kuklinski's own ego that led to his downfall. Feeling comfortable with Polifrone, he began to brag. On secret recordings, he recounted his murders in gruesome detail, offering advice on how to kill and dispose of bodies. He even offered to partner with Polifrone for a fictional cyanide murder, a sting operation designed to catch him red-handed. His arrogance betrayed him, providing investigators with the irrefutable evidence they needed. On December 17, 1986, the operation reached its climax. As Kuklinski drove with his wife, their car was swarmed by dozens of police vehicles on their quiet suburban street. The Iceman was finally caught. In prison, he wasn't silenced. He gave a series of infamous interviews, most notably for HBO, where he calmly and sometimes boastfully described his life as a killer. He showed no remorse for his victims, only a cold, detached pride in his work. Richard Kuklinski lived two completely separate lives. To his family and neighbors in Dumont, New Jersey, he was a loving father and husband, a man who threw summer barbecues. But in the shadows, he was one of the most prolific contract killers in American history. This chilling duality is his ultimate legacy. To history, he will always be remembered as the Iceman.